Welcome to Don't Chug It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we are talking about 529 plans. And because I am not an expert in the financial world, that is one of the areas that is just not my expertise, even though I've been in higher education and admissions for about 25 years. I brought in a guest. So today we are joined by Cheryl Rapp, and she is the College Investment Program Finance Officer with Edvest 529. So Cheryl, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I appreciate it.
Why don't you first take a moment to introduce yourself and kind of explain what you do so that my listeners and my viewers can know who you are?
Sure. So my name is Cheryl Rapp, and I actually work for the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions as the Wisconsin College Savings Program Edvest 529 specialist expert. And what we do is I actually go around the state of Wisconsin and talk to everybody about the importance of saving for post-secondary education with a college savings program with Edvest, who we are, what we do, and all that stuff.
Awesome. I think that's a very, very important role, and we definitely need to talk about finances. So
Definitely.
For those of you who are watching on YouTube, edvest.com is the website to go for all of your information. So if you're interested in learning more about 529, or as I call them, 529 plans, check out edvest.com and they will be able to help you out. So Cheryl, let's first start with what is a 529 plan? You know, you hear this all the time and parents talk about it. There's things on the internet about it, but let's start with the basics. What the heck is it?
Sure. So a 529 plan is actually named from Section 529 of the IRS tax code. So it's a college savings plan that's dedicated to education savings accounts where contributions that are made are actually invested and then earn compound interest over time.
Nice.
So what's really nice is it's also a tax advantage savings plan. So it's designed to help families save for future education expenses, such as your tuition, fees, books, room and board, at any eligible education institution.
So this is kind of in the same idea as what like a retirement plan would be if you're saving money for retirement, but this is more obviously focused towards education. Is that kind of a similar comparison?
Exactly. I usually say, think of your retirement fund, your Roth IRA, but instead it's an education savings. So that's exactly what it is, because it's an investment. It's not a true savings account.
Awesome. And when do you recommend that parents start considering a 529 plan?
So there's actually no true need to open it up by this time in this state.
Okay.
So it's never too early or too late to start. We always recommend the earlier the better, just because of compound interest.
Yep.
So like we said, there's no official age limit. Even if your child is starting college soon, you can still use a 529 to cover future expenses and get some of the tax benefits along the way.
Awesome. And that's always very helpful to get those tax benefits and being able to have money available to help pay for at least part of college and possibly even all of college if you start quite early. So for 529 plans, is the plan in the parent's name, the student name, the grandparent? Like who has the 529 plan?
So the person that opens up the account has the 529 plan. So most of the time, yep, it's the parent that opens up the account, but It doesn't have to just be the parent. A grandparent can open up the account, an aunt and uncle, a family friend can open the account, and then they'll name the beneficiary, which is your child that they're saving for. So the person that actually opens the account is the true account owner and has control of the funds.
Now, I will say a lot of times parents ask me about how does this play out into the financial aid process, and that's obviously farther down the road. So once a parent and student start applying towards colleges and parents have to go through the FAFSA and the CSS profile, they always ask me about that. I'd love to hear what you say, and I know some of the information that I have. So do you know how 529 plans operate within financial aid?
Yep. So Edvest 529 plans within financial aid, FAFSA, if it's a parent-owned account, does count towards the FAFSA. So when completing it, the accounts held would be actually, when completing the FAFSA, those accounts held by a parent will be counted as a parental asset, which then can reduces the aid package by about no more than 5.64% of the account's balance. So that means the student aid index on the FAFSA, known as the SAI calculation, means that the family will use a maximum of 5.64% of their 529 account to pay for college.
Yep.
So that's only if it's the parent account. So those that are held by a grandparent or anyone that's a non-custodial, so an aunt, uncle, or a family friend that opens up a 529 for your child, that will not count on the FAFSA at all anymore. So the student isn't required to report any cash support that they receive. So it won't affect anything that they will be able to earn from a FAFSA.
Awesome. Yeah. And you got right down into the percentage. I'm not that accurate. Like I just warn parents that you do have to report it as part of your assets. What I have noticed though is on the FAFSA website, when families are filling it out, it doesn't always explicitly list 529 plans as needing to be recorded within the assets and the savings. But I tell families that is an asset and a savings that you are able to utilize towards paying for college. So you do have to list the value of your 529 plan when you are filling out the FAFSA and listing your assets. So it also does not show up on the FAFSA estimator. So if families are filling out the FAFSA estimator, it'll ask for your assets, and 529 is not listed as an asset you need to list. It should. Someone in the federal government needs to update the website. But families, I'm warning you, do list your 529 plans when you're recording your assets so that the calculation within the FAFSA estimator and within the FAFSA is more accurate.
Yep, exactly.
So families, let's say, start this off. Maybe parents are like, okay, we've got a young kid, early elementary. We're going to start in putting our money into 529s. How do they even start setting it up? Do they contact edvest.com or do they go to their bank, or what do they do?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple ways to get started. So we've got here in Wisconsin is Edvest, which is the Drexel, and then there's Tomorrow's Scholar as well, which is the same 529. So Tomorrow's Scholar is through a financial advisor or a broker dealer. So I'm going to kind of focus on just the Edvest Drexel because that's what my expertise is. So the first step is, head to edvest.com, or you can call our customer service number, which that number I can give you. It's 1-888-338-3789. And you can call and talk to them and just say, I want to open up an account and be the account owner. So like I had mentioned before, anyone that opens the account is automatically the account owner. You must be 18 years or older to open up the account. And then you can name the beneficiary, which would be the minor. Typically, anyone that's under 18 would be the beneficiary. But we actually do have account owners that name themselves as the beneficiary because they're going on to graduate school or they're continuing school or any of that stuff. Oh. So you can name yourself as beneficiary as well, which is great.
So that could be a good idea for someone who's maybe thinking about, maybe they've graduated college, or maybe they're going to go do a master's or a PhD program or something in the future, and they want to start putting money away for that as they're getting their first job or whatever. So an Edvest 529 plan could be an option for them.
Yep, exactly. And so we say it can be for anybody, but obviously most people open it up for the minors, their child or something like that. So after you open up the account at edvest.com, then we always recommend people kind of figure out what your savings goals are and determine how much you want to save each month to meet that goal. So you can do monthly contributions, or you can change it and do contributions during holidays, gifting, it's graduation season, kind of stuff like that.
Yep.
Tax returns. So you don't have to put money in on a monthly basis. It's kind of easier to set up a monthly contribution just to kind of set it and forget it type thing. So, on our website, we do have calculators to help you figure out like what's the best option, what you want to do for your savings. Once the account's actually open, then you'll name your beneficiary. Like I had said, it can be the
Yep.
child, it can be a grandchild, friend, yourself, whomever. And then once you have all that done, if you're on edvest.com, you'll actually be given a list of different portfolios you can choose. So if you feel comfortable or you're determined that your beneficiary might enter higher education at a certain year, like if newborn 18 years from now, you can select like investment year portfolio, or if you're comfortable doing it yourself, you can do a single portfolio where you're more involved with setting up those things.
Yeah.
So on our website has you a whole list of comparison and different investment options for you. I do know that our best one that's always picked, or the highest one that's picked, is the investment year portfolio, because people are like, hey, I know my child's graduating high school at this year, and then investments will automatically be more aggressive and then become more conservative the closer you're ready to use it, kind of thing.
Interesting. So you've got already some preset options. So then families who are not investment savvy are going to be able to get the benefits of an investment portfolio without having to micromanage it.
Yep, exactly. And you can go in and change your portfolios too. So if you feel like you are investment savvy at first and then realize, oh, I don't have the time to do this or whatever, you can go in and change the portfolios that best fits you and what your situation is.
Or if life gets busy and you don't want to be tending to something, you can,
Exactly.
you do the Ron Popeil method and set it and forget it. And then you can just, get the benefits that way. So it sounds like auto payments are also available. So then literally families can set up for, whatever month or whatever amount per month and
Whatever
just
amount.
let it go.
Yep. And it can come from their checking or savings account. Some companies we work with have what's called Edvest at Work. So you can do direct deposit from payroll as well. And we're happy to set that up with any company too. It's free. It's a free tool. It doesn't cost you anything. And we can connect with HR to figure out how best to do the direct deposits through payroll.
I was just going to ask, so how should parents who are working find out if their company is an Edvest at Work company?
They can just talk to their HR person or their fiscal person in the company and ask if they offer Edvest at Work. And if they don't, they can reach out to me and we can get them set up with getting Edvest at Work and getting information out there so that it can be shared with all the employees at whatever company.
That sounds like a great way for employees to invest in their staff and in their future kids' college education.
It is, and it's a great benefit that they can add to their kind of portfolio versus just a retirement fund. You can help with their employees' children's future education.
Yeah, and it sounds like this is also a great option for people who may not have kids, but maybe they have nieces, nephews, grandkids, some other connection that they want to help pay for college, but they don't just want to stick it in a savings account. They want to, do something with it and also get the tax benefits. So this sounds like an option for some families that are in those type of scenarios as well.
Yep, exactly. So I know a lot of friends actually are the aunts and uncles that open up the accounts. So instead of, the birthday gift and a toy, they put money into the Edvest account for their niece or nephew.
Yeah, I'm from the era that we got savings bonds, so I'm glad that this is now an option. I think I would have preferred if my grandparents would have done something like this, but savings bonds kind of worked too. When I was a kid, they were kind of fun to get, but this would be probably a better investment for some of those things. So families set this up, it sits there for a while, and then they get close to applying for college, or maybe they're about ready to head off to college. How do they then activate the 529 and be able to use that for college?
Yeah, so when it comes to withdrawals, you can then request withdrawals three different ways. You can do it online through your account. It kind of sets you up and says, I want to withdraw money for tuition. You can do it over the phone by calling our 800 number, or there's actual paper application you can print out that's from our website as well to say, I want to do withdrawals. There are different ways too, where depending on what school you go to and stuff like that, you can do a withdrawal. So it's automatic deposit, an ACH to the school. Not all schools offer that. but there are ways to do it that way. Or you can have a check sent to you directly, the account owner, to then reimburse yourself for the tuition you had paid, or wait for the check to get there and pay the tuition kind of thing that way. For qualified expenses, usually you pay ahead of time and then you can just reimburse yourself. What we recommend is make sure you save all your receipts just in case you get questioned or audited. Was this truly for a higher education for qualified expenses? That way you won't get taxed on it. So it's always good to keep your receipts.
And that leads into exactly why I was doing this episode today. One of my clients actually reached out to me and said, I'm a little confused about how to utilize my 529 plan. Can you do an episode talking about it? And he kind of got into a sticky situation. His daughter was at a college and he tried to use his 529 plan to reimburse for paying for the parking fees that the student was accruing by, not parking tickets, but the parking fees to register the car and park the car on campus. And I think that was a no. If I remember correctly, the 529 plan said, yeah, we don't cover parking. So that one, you're going to have to eat that cost yourself.
You can go through what's not covered first, and then I'll go into what's actually covered.
Sure.
So what's not covered is parking fees. So if you want to pay for parking, it's not covered. Parking tickets is not covered. College application fees or admission testing fees is not covered. Insurance payments is not covered by an Edvest. Greek life is not covered by Edvest. If you want to join a sorority or fraternity, sorry, that's on your own. Any transportation costs, unfortunately, is not covered. Recreation centers or gym fees, because we know that there's a lot of recreation centers on campuses, they are not covered. Gaming software is not covered. So those are kind of the high level. Also, what's not covered to make a note of is some housing and food, if it's in excess of what the school housing cost is not covered. So I can go into what is covered is your typical tuition. That's tuition at any eligible education institution. And an eligible education institution is mainly a institution that accepts financial aid. So look at it that way. And I can go into more of that a little bit later. But your on-campus housing, such as a dorm, will be covered. Off-campus housing, up to the allowance determined by the school as part of the cost of attendance, is covered. Just make a note, the student must be enrolled at least half time to be able to use your 529 savings for housing and food costs. So that's number one.
Yeah, and I think a lot of families don't understand that when a student opts to live off campus, inside the financial aid office, they make a calculation as to what the on-campus basic cost would have been for that student, and that is what's put into the financial aid kind of assessment. And usually that's the number that the 529 plan will kind of look at, is what is the average cost. So if a student wants to get a very luxurious apartment off campus and pay, $5,000 a month, Edvest is probably not going to cover the whole thing. They're going to look at to what the average cost is that the college would assess that student on, and typically reimburse right around there. The other one that a lot of people ask me is, are my services as an independent educational consultant covered by 529? And I'm assuming no, because I am not a direct educational benefit for college. I am something that is above and beyond what the cost would be to go to college.
That's correct. So yours would not be covered, just like a tutor would not be covered along those lines either, unfortunately. But textbooks. Go ahead.
And that's what I was going to ask. What about textbooks, laptops, school-related supplies?
Yep. So all of that will be included. So your books, your supplies, equipment that's required for whatever courses you're taking will be covered by an Edvest 529 account. Computers, which includes the actual computer or laptop that you use, the peripheral equipment, the computer software, but not gaming software, just computer software. Need to make sure people know that.
I hear you.
Internet access for the primary beneficiary who's enrolled at the post-secondary education school you can actually help pay for that through your Edvest 529. Um, there's also special needs is considered qualified expenses as well for a 529.
So if students have a documented disability and they need particular educational equipment or adaptive equipment or things of that nature, that would be covered by a 529 plan?
Yes, it would be. Yep.
Awesome. And obviously, in addition to, other resources for that population, such as the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation and other financial resources. So, but this would be great, especially for students with significant disabilities that really require a lot of technology or assistance, such as would a motorized, device be covered, such as a motorized wheelchair, or is that beyond education?
I think that's beyond education on that one.
Okay.
But it would be anything that's related to the educational needs that would be covered.
Right.
So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So that's another funding possibility for families that would like to kind of financially prepare for that. If they know that their kid is going to need specific adaptive equipment or technology online to be able to make college more accessible for them, it's great to know that 529 plans would be able to cover that.
Yep, exactly. And there's actually some other areas outside of the traditional college or technical college that are considered qualified education expenses. So that's the apprenticeship programs. So apprenticeship programs that are registered with the Secretary of Labor under the National Apprenticeship Act will actually qualify for 529 plans. So if you need equipment, if let's say you're going to be an arborist and you have to buy your harness and stuff like that, you can use your 529 to actually pay for that equipment because it's an education and continuing education for a program that you're going to be doing.
And that's also applies for things like auto mechanics or plumbing or some places that really have some expensive equipment that they need to buy.
Yes, yes. Definitely does, as long as they are listed under the Secretary of Labor, like the National Apprenticeship Act, which you can go to the apprenticeship.gov website, and that'll give you a list of qualified schools that accept 529s pretty much.
That's really cool because I know that there are lots of students that are going to tech colleges where some of those programs require you to buy some really expensive equipment in order to get going. And I watched a TikTok video not that long ago of guys who were a year out and they were talking about how much in debt they were because of the equipment they had to buy. But if they're thinking of going that route, so if your child is maybe not thinking of going to a 4-year college, but you think potentially going to a 2-year college, Edvest 529 plans can also be very beneficial for you.
Yep, exactly. And so that's what we kind of tell. And I know with kind of the trend and change right now, a lot of students are going the apprenticeship and the trades route. So having that 529 definitely does help pay for whatever is needed for them to be successful.
Yeah, that's great information. I learned something new. I didn't know that it covered apprenticeship tools, and so that's really super helpful. I'm assuming if they're a long haul truck driver, you're not going to purchase a semi for them, though.
No, it won't do that, but it'll go like, because obviously there's some still schooling and books and things that are needed. So, and then it'll be the immediate equipment that's associated with that it can pay for.
Wonderful. What are some other things that parents and families should know about 529 plans that they don't often think about?
So what's also nice about a 529 plan is besides your typical schooling, it can actually help pay for private K through 12 tuition up to $10,000 per year for tuition only right now per beneficiary. So if you have 2 or 3 children going to school, you can do 10,000 times your 2 to 3 children to help pay for private tuition. You can actually use it to help pay off student loans up to a lifetime of $10,000 per individual as well, which is great. So there's
knocking off $10,000 in loans is a good chunk to knock off. So, so that would be something that if there was 529 or 529 plans, funds available after they graduate and you have that money sitting out there, you might say, oh, I can use up to $10,000 to be able to pay back one of the loans. Is that how that works?
Yep, exactly. That's how that works. And what's also brand new that passed in January of 2024, if you happen to have money left over in your 529 and you're done with education and you don't want to name any beneficiaries or future grandchildren and stuff like that, you can actually roll over the money in your 529 into a Roth IRA as well. So we kind of
Oh,
consider it a win-win because you have an account that's open for education. And when you're done with education, it's now a retirement fund for whoever you had named as your beneficiary.
that is a big change. That is that I feel like people were trying to find ways to spend it if they had, they'll have like, two, three, $4,000 left in the account and they're just like, okay, how do I spend this? And they've utilized everything else. Now that gives them an opportunity if there are leftover funds to be able to use it for a different purpose, such as retirement.
Yep, exactly. The only stipulation on that is the account had to be open for at least 15 years. So if your account has been open for at least 15 years, you can then roll it into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary. And then this rollover is subject to additional rules. You can roll over a maximum of $35,000 from your Edvest 529 plan for a single beneficiary. And it's subject to both the annual Roth IRA contribution limit and then the lifetime rollover limit. So for this year, 2025, it's, I believe, $7,000 is your contribution limit that you can put into it. But as long as the account's been open for 15 years and the funds that are rolled over are in the account for at least 5 years, you can 100% open up the Roth IRA for the beneficiary you had been saving for.
Awesome. And you're talking about the 529 plan being open for at least 15 years.
Yes, I am talking about a
Yeah.
529 plan being open for at least 15 years.
Cool. That's another thing I learned that's new. See, this is why I wanted you on the show, so I could learn more information and help families make some good financial decisions as they are starting to prepare for college. Are there other fun facts or myths that you need to debunk about 529 plans?
Well, so there are a couple where, yep, if you make a non-qualified withdrawal, which it's your account, you own the money, you can 100% do whatever you want with it. And if you're like, nope, I'm done with all education, I don't want to name other beneficiaries, I don't want to create that legacy kind of for future grandchildren or any of that, you can withdraw the funds. And you can withdraw your principal contribution with no penalty at all. The earnings portion is what will be subject to federal and state taxes, plus a 10% additional federal tax on just the earnings portion. So know that if you want to remove the money, withdraw the money that's for non-qualified higher education, 100% do it. You'll get a 10% penalty on just the interest earnings on it.
And that makes sense to me because you're using it for a different purpose and it has been sitting there as untaxed income for a while. So there's going to be a penalty because of that. Seems like everything has a penalty if you don't follow the rules perfectly. So it makes sense. At
Right.
least you can get the vast majority of your money back if you decide to, but you still have to pay that 10% penalty.
Yep, exactly.
This is all super helpful information. Is there other fun things you'd like our listeners to know about 529 plans?
We just want everyone to know that 529 plans are one of the most powerful tools that are out there to plan for education. So it doesn't matter if it's a 4-year, a technical college, or a trade apprenticeship. It's flexible, it's tax friendly, and it's really easy to set up. So we're always here to help with questions. Go to edvest.com. We do actually have two consultants that are dedicated here for Wisconsin. One's actually based in Green Bay and one's based in Milwaukee, where you can set up one-on-one video with them or phone calls with them on just questions that you might have for opening up Edvest accounts and things like that.
Cool. And Edvest is available for people all across the country. This is not a Wisconsin specific thing, correct?
Correct. So it's known as 529 plans, college savings plans is throughout the country. For Wisconsin specific, it's known as Edvest and Tomorrow Scholar. But a 529 plan can be anywhere. What's also great is when you open up a 529 plan, you don't have to use it for an Edvest one doesn't have to be just in the state of Wisconsin. So if your child decides to go to school out of the state, you can use your money to pay for schooling out of state. There are some study abroad schools, as long as the study abroad accepts financial aid, the FAFSA, they will accept then a 529. So there are options if you're like, well, I don't live in Wisconsin or my child's going to go somewhere else. It doesn't matter where you're going to school for post-secondary education. The money can still be used for that.
Yeah, and it truly can be used for almost every college and university in the United States. There are very, very few colleges out there that are not connected to the FAFSA. It is probably a list that I could write on a wall. So if you're worried about, well, I'm very unsure as to if my student's going to go to a 2-year, 4-year, public, private, stay in state or go out of state, I would not worry about the 529 plan, because that is going to be applicable to just about every college in the United States.
Yep, exactly.
Does it also cost, I know we have lots of students that are thinking of going to college in Canada, which Canada sometimes will look at FAFSA, sometimes not. I don't know how 529 plans work with Canadian education.
I actually am not 100% sure on that one either. I think the rule I would apply would be if they accept financial aid, FAFSA, then they should accept a 529 plan. But it's always best to, if they're applying to a school in Canada, ask their admissions or ask their financial aid office of, hey, do you accept a 529 plan? And they'll let you know.
That's a great tip. I really appreciate that. Wonderful. Cheryl, any last thoughts, words, comments for my listeners and my viewers? Because this has been super helpful. I have learned a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to spread the word. We just want to let people know it's never too late to start saving for college, and opening up an Edvest 529 account is one of the best tools out there. So we just wanted to spread the word and let people know about us.
Really appreciate you joining me today. If you live in Wisconsin, check out edvest.com. You can also find the 529 plan and supports for your own state by searching your state and 529 plan. But do reach out, find a local office and a local provider so that you can learn more about this method that will help you save money for college. Whether your kids are young or they're heading off to college in the near future, a 529 plan might be something that could benefit you in both the short term and the long term. So, Cheryl, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today, but fear not, we will be back next week with more tips and tricks to help you conquer the college application process like a boss. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.